Hello, everybody, and welcome to TV Talks, the show where I take a look at both the good and the bad of what television has to offer. And it's Wishlist Week for the very first time in TV Talks, but not for my reviews on this channel. Yes. Either way, you should be very, very excited. And for those of you who don't know what this is, I made a video where you people request what I should review next, and I take a look at those and I decide which ones would be the best, and then I do those. And of course, requests are always accepted and always welcome. Well, not always accepted, like I won't do everything I'm requested, because some people have requested me to do movies, and this is TV Talks for a reason. It has to originate on TV. But if you have a TV show you want me to look at, whether it be good or bad, feel free to let me know. So, Wishlist Week. Episode 1, Dan Versus. Oh man, I've liked this show for quite a while. Yep, I kind of gave it away right there, but, well, let's just get on with it. Dan Versus is a very simple story. It's about a short, angry man who lives in California named Dan. He has, like, the worst life ever, or so he says. Well, though his life is pretty bad, he always blows everything out of proportion, because, see, Dan has anger issues, and not just anger issues like, oh, I get angry easily, but no, this guy freaks out about everything. He's basically the human version of anger from Inside Out, but even ramped up to, like, times 10. Dan always finds something wrong in his life. Everything. Whether it just be like getting hit on the head with a baseball and then all of a sudden that just ruins his day. And not only that, but when his day gets ruined, he feels the need to take revenge on these things that ruin his day. Like baseball, Canada, New Mexico, the dentist, the barber. Literally, you name it and he will get angry at it. Dan's only friend is this guy named Chris, who sometimes is kind of the dopey best friend, and other times is more of the intelligent voice of reason. But it's not that his character is inconsistent, it's just that he's able to play both roles because, well, he's able to fit both of them. And Chris is married to a woman named Elise, who really does not like Dan, and Dan does really not like Elise, like, at all. They really don't get along. And if it wasn't for Chris in there, they would probably have ripped each other to shreds by now. One subplot with the show is that Elise is actually a secret agent and always goes around doing a bunch of crazy stuff when Chris thinks that she's actually at work. This subplot I'll talk about a little bit more, my feelings towards it. So, obviously I like Dan Versus. It's very good. I liked it ever since it originated on The Hub, which I really miss that channel. I know it's Discovery Family or Discovery Kids or whatever now, but I don't know. The Hub just had its own little certain charm. And this was another little charming aspect, because the Hub was known for things like My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Littlest Pet Shop, some other Care Bear stuff, I'm sure. But, and it even had like reruns of Animaniacs and Tiny Toons, those classic shows. But then Dan Versus rolled around. Dan Versus was a complete opposite direction. Instead of the happy, feel-good, bright-colored cartoons that the Hub was known for, this was darker, this was angry, this was a lot more bitter and mean. But it was awesome. It was really well written. It seems like one of those very formulaic shows like Phineas and Ferb or, I don't know, Scooby-Doo, where it just seems like it's going to be the same thing over and over again. Dan gets angry at something, he blows it out of proportion, he drags Chris along, and then wacky hijinks ensue. While yes, that does happen in every episode, the ways that they vary it up, and the overall insanity of not just the way he takes it, but the things he gets mad at. Like I said, wanting to just blow up New Mexico in and of itself, that's like the first episode, so the only way to go is up. Or trying to kill Chris's parents. And all these bad things do happen to Dan along the way, but it's perfectly fine. You don't care. It's funny the way that they do it, and Dan is such a horrible, horrible person that it feels good to see it happen to him. Although, yes, there are some elements where it does show Dan is actually a kind and caring person who actually has a heart. Like in the episode, the anger management one, where Dan finally goes to get anger management classes, only to find out that the teacher has anger management problems herself, and then they bond over, yes, doing horrible things to people, but he actually starts falling in love with her. He actually does develop a real connection, showing that he actually does care and he is a real person. And there are lots of moments in the show where he actually does seem like a legitimate friend to Chris, where he actually is a really nice guy. although those moments are few and far between, they're always very nice to see. But of course, we're always going to go back to the crazy, hyperbolic Dan, who always does a bunch of crazy, insane stuff that probably should have got him arrested by now. Actually, I think he might have. I don't know. It's been a little bit since I watched the entire show. Of course, I did watch a fair bit before this one. Sorry, bumped mic right there. Anyways, it's been a little bit since I watched the show before this review, and rewatching it was even better than I remembered. I mean, I always knew I liked it, but rewatching it here, it's just so well written and so good. And the funny thing is, the animation, I can't tell whether it's like good or bad. I'd say it's perfectly middle of the road, but it really fits this show because the animation's kind of dirty, the animation's kind of grungy looking sort of, but also has this slight cleanish texture. It's really hard to describe, but it fits the tone of the show perfectly. And some of my favorite episodes are as follows, just so I can give you a little bit of a taste of what they are. Dan versus reality television, because I myself don't really like reality television, so he goes on this parody of The Bachelorette, and he intentionally tries to lose and make everything just absolutely terrible and horrible, but he actually ends up winning and getting really far. But then when he actually does want to win the grand prize, because, well, the grand prize isn't actually a date, spoilers, he actually tries winning, and then the network doesn't like him, so they try to make him lose. It's really, really good. Dan versus the Boss, the first one I ever saw, where Dan ends up actually getting a job, because that's the thing, he doesn't really have a job, he just borrows money and mooches things from Chris and Elise. He actually gets a job, and then the boss turns out to be like this crazy monster. It's really good. Then there's Dan versus Burger File, where Dan, he gets a burger saying over and over, I don't want cheese on this burger. I am lactose intolerant. I can't have cheese. Don't put cheese on the burger. And then he gets cheese on the burger. And then he just explodes and he tries to take down the whole restaurant. Not like destroy it, but like making all the customers scared and running away and stuff until he gets a refund. Or it's just the lengths he goes to in these episodes. And those are just a couple. I can't think of one that I didn't like. Yeah, all of them I like. But if there was a downside to the show, which I'm going to go back to praising in just a minute, but the Elise subplot, I mean, I like Elise as a character. She's very fun, but the secret agent thing is just kind of I mean, it's not bad at all. It's just they could have done more with it, because half the episodes it doesn't even seem like they mention it. But oh well, that's a small complaint. Now, one other thing that I have to say really works about this show is Dan's voice actor. If they cast Dan as anybody else, or anybody else as Dan, the show would not have worked as well. Curtis Armstrong does an amazing job portraying this angry, vengeful, horrible person, but also portrays his likability and how horrible he is. He's just got that kind of voice where it's so crazy and insane, but also kind of charming and fun at the same time. And that is also kind of Dan, although the former far outweighs the latter most of the time. The voice cast, while I'm on the subject, is really good. Every character just is perfectly cast. Although not everybody is like one of those crazy, funny, wacky people, they do a very good job with the roles they're given, even though there's only like, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 central characters that keep coming back. And even then, it's only 3, like the 3 main characters, Dan, Chris, and Elise. Then there's also a few recurring characters and, I don't know, one-offs who come back like once. But the point still stands that the acting is great, the animation is great, everything is great in this show. They really knew what they were doing with this. Now, Dan Versus was a pretty big hit when it came out on the Hub. Of course, the Hub is not around anymore, and they don't even air it anymore. But you can still buy it on DVD and all, and I highly recommend it. But I have to address the elephant in the room with Dan Versus is the ending for the show. Now, I'm not saying this had like a finale like Dinosaurs or any sort of other show like that where they had a really bad finale that did something really bad. No. Dan Versus had no finale. None. There was nothing resolved, nothing ended, and it's not like there was a cliffhanger or anything. The Hub just stopped the show. Stopped the show absolutely abruptly. Nobody knew what happened. In fact, people actually had to track down Curtis Armstrong and ask them what happened to Dan Versus. He doesn't know. When From what I seen, the closest thing he said was the hub just didn't want to renew it, so Dan versus is over. I mean, we got 50 episodes, and that's fine, but it's not that I'm upset it was over or canceled or something, but it's just that it was canceled so abruptly and with no explanation. If they canceled it due to, like, I don't know, low ratings or massive decline in interest or something, that would be okay. That's a reason, but that's the thing. Reason. There was no reason to cut it off. But I'm not really that angry with it because, like I said, we got like 53 episodes, so we got a lot of Dan, and we still got a lot of stuff to look back on. So it's not one of the most upsetting cancellations. Oh, trust me, there's way worse cancellations I'll be talking about someday. But Dan versus cancellation was very confusing. And hopefully Curtis Armstrong will be able to go on to do more great roles, as well as the rest of the voice cast. But, for as it is, Dan versus definitely gets the Archibald seal of approval. Now, it's very good to look back on this show, this great show, this well-written show, this hopefully soon-to-be classic show. But tomorrow, we're doing the exact opposite. A show that has recently become classic for all the wrong reasons. Tomorrow, it's gonna be rough. When I take on the show, the first show on TV Talks, that'll most assuredly only get the Scallion seal of disapproval. Because if you've noticed up until this point, the ones that I have given it to have been mixed. Like I've given some seasons it, or a few parts of it. Just that. Heck, with my first one, Popetown, I didn't know where to place it. So, brace yourselves for tomorrow. I think I'm going to have to keep my Dan vs. Season 1 DVD on standby just in case to show me that Wishlist Week number 3 won't be all bad. See you tomorrow, folks. Pray for me.